I'm finding that regardless of what is true, I'm having a hard time understanding the point of any of it. I mean, if atheism is true and evolution is true, then what's the point of any of this? We're just here because we're here, and when we die, we cease to exist and will never exist again. We never existed prior to our human conception and will never exist after we die. Then what's the point of any of this? Why would any of it exist at all? That is completely nonsensical. So now let's add in God. Okay, so God created the world, and the process of life began through the processes of evolution, which involves billions of years of death and suffering, only to one day, billions of years later, produce civilized human beings who we could easily argue that while we are now civilized and have this knowledge and understanding of things and have done all these amazing things, we're still insane. And we're still doing insane, horrible things. And regardless of that, even if we aren't doing the insane, horrible things, and life becomes, decent around the world, and we've attained a level of civilization that, is pretty good. What's the point? What's the point? Why would God create through the processes of evolution, which is extremely destructive and chaotic? And what is the point of all of that? So billions of years of death and suffering, mostly death and suffering, and then you die, and what happens? Life is eternal? If life is eternal, and there's life, there's meaning to life, there's a purpose to life. Well, what was that purpose for the billions of years of primitive man who was slowly evolving? It would take millions and millions of years for man to evolve into a civilized being. Prior to that, he was extremely primitive, incapable of anything. He wasn't really much different than animals. Not much. What was the difference? The evolutionist Christians who believe in evolution basically teach that God intervened. There was an Adam and Eve story where he gives them a conscience, a soul. Man became a living being, separate from the animals, different from the animals, capable of, and then the whole Adam and Eve story is that they took to themselves the knowledge of good and evil, and so they understood that something that animals don't understand. I was just talking about this with someone in the comments, and I found it very interesting what he said. And it's nice to have a nice conversation with a Christian who believes in evolution. See, I don't believe that we evolved from the primordial soup, the amino acids, protein molecules, and that all of life began that way. I don't believe that. It's very possible that is right, and I'm just dead wrong about it, and that we did evolve from apes, but I don't believe it because I don't see any intermediate species today. I don't see half human creatures, half bird reptile creatures today. There are none. Why do we only see birds and reptiles? Where are all the intermediate species? Shouldn't there be millions of intermediate part reptile, part bird creatures all over the world? And that is also true of every species on the planet right now. Wouldn't there be intermediate forms alive right now? How could everything just be human? Everything's either a bird or a reptile. Everything. There's birds and there's reptiles. Now, I'm not saying what Ray Comfort and his friend said, where's the crocoduck? that was a really dumb argument of theirs. We should see a crocoduck. No, you wouldn't see a crocoduck. But you would see a reptile that's part bird-like, or you'd see a bird that's part reptile-like. Not a, the crocoduck was it's just so dumb. But wouldn't there have to be intermediate? How could all the intermediate species they all went extinct? Every intermediate species. So every primitive species of man who evolved from the ape-like creature, they all died out except man. So Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, all of those positions that evolution claims we were, they all died out, but humans survived, and only humans survived. Chimps survived, but there's no part chimp creature. Gorillas survived. There's no part gorilla creature. Where are the intermediates? Why would they all go extinct? Why would none be here today? So that's why I don't believe that science is right. And I actually believe that at some point in the future, science is going to find out that they're wrong. Now, I'm totally guessing, and I'm not claiming that I'm right. I'm not saying I know evolution didn't happen. No, I would never say something that's stupid, because we know evolution happens. We know species evolve. There's no denying that. Young Earth creationists don't deny that. Yet they claim dogmatically that no species has ever evolved into another species. Well, I've never seen any evidence. He talked about the retroviruses, but again, I don't see any evidence that a non-dog creature ever evolved into a dog, or that a dog will ever evolve into something that's other than a dog. I don't see any evidence that supports it that is observable. The fossil record proves that there could have been these intermediate species, but then why are they all dead? Maybe we're misunderstanding the fossil record. Again, I'm guessing. I'm not a scientist. I don't have knowledge. I am ignorant on a lot of these things. I freely admit that. That's why I'm saying I'm not claiming anything dogmatically here. But let's get back to the meaning of life. The meaning and purpose of life. What is it if there's no God? Well, we could have the eternally existing universe. The universe has always existed. There is no God who created it. The universe is always here. I accept that as a plausible possibility. If not God, what? An eternally existing universe. Okay. If you can have an eternally existing God, you can have an eternally existing universe. You can't say you can have an eternally existing God, but you can't have an eternally existing universe. You can't say that. People have tried, and I'm like, the same problem with infinite time applies to God. And they try to say, no, it doesn't, because time didn't exist. Baloney. There was the time before God created the universe, then there was a time when he created the universe, and then there was a time after he created the universe. There was no time? Yes, there was. Oh, there was no time. So God existed, and then one day no, you can't say one day, because that implies time. There was no time until God created the universe, and now time begins. So was God in a state of suspended animation? There was no time? What is God doing for all eternity past? But you can't have eternity past, because that's time. So I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense to me when the Christian makes that argument. I don't get that. So I accept an eternally existing deity who created all things, that all things come from, the eternal source, and Joseph Murphy described God as infinite spirit, or the life principle. I like that explanation. That at least gives me a glimpse of what God might be. Or I accept the evolutionist belief that Carl Sagan believed. The universe is all there's ever been. I'm perfectly fine with that. Then I call the universe God. So now what is the purpose of life? Why did life begin? Random, spontaneous generation? It just happened? Really? Then there's no reason for us to be here, and nothing we do matters in any sense. The problem with atheism is, if it's true, then there is literally no reason to be here, and there is literally no such thing as good or evil, right or wrong. It does not matter if you kill somebody, rape somebody, mutilate somebody, torture somebody, eat somebody. It doesn't matter what you do. We're just molecules in motion doing stuff, and nothing matters. It's completely meaningless. And this makes sense to an atheist? They talk about living a good life, a meaningful life. Sam Harris is constantly talking about how we should live the best life we could. Why? Who cares? Well, sure, it matters in the here and now. Live a good life so you feel good, but you're going to die and you're never going to exist again, ever. Sam, you'll be wiped from history. William Shakespeare is no more. Oh, but we remember him. Yeah, and how many people do we not remember? So what that we remember him? What does it matter that people remember you or not? What does it matter what you did in your life if there's literally no meaning or purpose to life? Atheism is completely nonsensical to me. Yet I acknowledge they might be right, and there may be no reason for this, but then don't tell me that it matters if you did good or evil, or right or wrong. How does it matter? What does it matter a million years from now, what will it matter what you did with your life? Let me say it like that. What does it matter 100 years from now? What will it matter? Well, you're the people, you had kids, and then they have kids, and your progeny will go on. Who cares? So what? So what? Look, the sun's going to eventually burn up the earth, so we're all going to be dead. So there is no future. So this is all going to come to an end. So what does any of it matter? There is no meaning or purpose to life. That's ridiculous. So now let's bring in God. So now we have meaning and purpose to life. Okay, what's that meaning and purpose? We're going to live a good life, and then we die, and then we get judged by our works, whether we did good or evil. So everyone who does good gets rewarded, and everyone who does evil gets punished. But then we hear, oh no, if you come to Christ, you're saved by grace through faith, not of works, lest anyone should boast. We're not saved by works. We're not saved by our good deeds. We're saved by grace through faith in the Lord Jesus. And we inherit eternal life. It is given to us. And to those it is not given to, they burn in hell for all eternity. That's worse than atheism. A literal eternal hell for the masses? That's what the Christian, the fundamentalist Christian worldview is. It is a reality that makes less sense than atheism. Then we have universalism. That makes sense. Everybody ultimately gets saved. We ultimately live in paradise. Okay. Now at least I'm starting to see there's a reason to do good, because it's right to do good and it's wrong to do evil, and evil only makes you a worse person. Doing bad things and only hurts you, and doing good things benefits you, which matters for all eternity. Everything we do, every thought we think matters for all eternity. It's who we are. But there is redemption and salvation through Christ, your forgiveness of all of your sins. You can be cleansed and restored and renewed and be made into a new man, new woman, new man. Let's not be sexist here. Okay, fine. So now you live your life and you do good because it's right to do good, and you do evil, and you don't do evil. You do evil because it's right. No, you don't do evil because it's wrong to do evil. So what happens to you when you die? Oh, you're forgiven. If you're forgiven, then it doesn't matter if I do evil. If I'm just going to be forgiven, then it doesn't matter what I do. If I'm going to be punished, I don't want to be punished. Nobody wants to be punished. But if I'm going to be punished for all eternity, that's insane. So you're just going to punish me forever. Forever, punish, and it never ends. You never stop being punished. What? What is the point of that? If punishment isn't ultimately restorative, what is you don't spank your kid and say, now I'm just going to keep spanking you. You spank your kid to teach them a lesson. Now, some people say we should never spank our kids, and we can argue about that. I'm not here to argue about whether or not we should spank our kids. I'm saying the reason a parent punishes their child, however you choose to punish them, is for correction. And so the only logical, conclusion I can draw for punishment is for correction. It's restorative. It is to teach you a lesson. So life is about learning lessons. And so we're here in this temporary existence to learn. Okay. But why? We're stuck with like no real understanding. We're guessing. We don't really know what the purpose of life is, why we're here. We all have theories about why we're here and what will happen when we die. Is the not knowing necessary? Is there a way to know and not have to wonder anymore about it? Because honestly, I don't like where my life is right now. I don't like how my life is, and I feel powerless to do anything about it. I don't know how you feel. If I had millions of dollars, I would have the power to make my life whatever I wanted it to be. I could go live wherever I want. I could travel the world whenever I want. I could do anything I want. I am locked into an existence that I don't want, but it's better than being homeless. That's the last thing I want to have happen to me. If that happens to me, I don't even know what I'll do. But look at all the people who are homeless. Look at all the people who are suffering in this world. Why? It's so insane. And so why is this all happening? And what is the point of all of this? Where's it all going? If we're not going ultimately to paradise, then I don't understand. I don't get it. If this doesn't ultimately end with everyone ultimately being forgiven, being restored, being cleansed, and ending up whole and complete, and then living a meaningful existence throughout all eternity. Love, joy, and peace spread throughout the world. The new heavens and the new earth, the Bible describes it as. That sounds right, but is that just wishful thinking? What if it's not the way it is and death is just the end? What are you going to do if when you die, you don't exist? Oh, wait, I don't exist anymore. Wait a second. I don't exist. I wouldn't know that I don't exist. That's a scary thought, that when we die, we cease to exist. Because if that were true, then then there really are no consequences to your actions other than the here and now. Don't do bad things because somebody will beat you up. Don't somebody will hurt you. But you can literally do anything you want. If when you die you cease to exist and will never exist again, then you can literally do anything you want, and then hedonism makes perfect sense. Doesn't it? Doesn't hedonism make perfect sense? If when we die we cease to exist and will never exist again, then wouldn't the most logical thing to do while we're here is to fill ourselves with as much pleasure as we can have every moment of every day? And then I would want billions of dollars. And then I would engage in physical pleasure and mental pleasure until I die. That would be the most logical thing to do, wouldn't it? And there's my struggle with meaning and purpose, because where's this ultimately going? If not paradise, I don't understand. I'm very confused by the whole thing. And that's all I wanted to say. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.